The phone wouldn't stop ringing. 10 missed calls in 4 minutes. Mom, Dad, and Chloe took turns answering as if it were a fire drill. I watched the screen light up, and then go dark as snow gently fell on my window. On the nightstand was my packed suitcase, and next to it, my folded boarding pass to Colorado. They were supposed to meet me at the bank then to buy an apartment for my sister, one I could easily afford. I stirred my coffee calmly and steadily. I didn't argue. I simply disappeared. But if you knew what drove me to leave, you'd understand why silence was the most eloquent thing I've ever said. My name is Maya. I'm 30 years old, and I've been working since I was 16. Back then, my friends were saving up for concert tickets, while I was saving up for textbooks and gas. I worked at a burger joint after school, stocking shelves on weekends, telling myself that every dollar I earned was one step closer to needing someone's help. When I graduated high school, I barely had enough for one semester of college. When I got accepted to Tech University, I thought my parents would be so proud. I came home that night with the letter, my heart pounding. I'd been accepted. I told them at dinner. Dad looked up from his phone for a moment and said, "That's expensive, isn't it?" Mom sighed as she cut Chloe's chicken into perfect bites. "We don't have that kind of money, Maya. You probably had to work harder to get a full scholarship." I remember the prick in my throat as I forced a smile. Chloe, who was 12 at the time, smiled as if she understood something I didn't. At that moment, I realized I was alone. I took out student loans, $60,000 at first. By the time I graduated, it had ballooned to $80,000 with interest. I worked in the university's tech labs, teaching whatever I could find. Most nights, I'd fall asleep at my desk with my coffee cup empty and a half-eaten piece of granola. The only person who cared about me was my grandmother, Iris. Every Sunday, she'd call and send me little envelopes containing $50 bills and notes written in shaky handwriting. "Keep going, honey, you're almost there." She was the reason I never gave up. When I finally graduated, my parents weren't there. My mom said over the phone that they were on a cruise with Chloe, something we'd planned months in advance. My grandma Iris drove 4 hours to be there. She stood in the crowd waving like I was the only person in the world. After graduation, I landed my first real job as a software engineer. It wasn't prestigious, but it was stable. I rented a small apartment, ate canned soup for dinner, and paid off every extra dollar I spent on loans. I watched my friends buy new cars and travel while I calculated how many years I had left to pay off. 10 if I was lucky. My parents rarely called, and when they did, the conversations were superficial and polite. "How's work?" "Good. That's nice." Chloe just got elected to student council. When I turned 30, I had one goal: to pay off my debt and finally breathe a sigh of relief. The morning I made my final payment, I sat silently, staring at the screen that read balance 0. I was supposed to feel free, and for a moment I did. Then the phone rang. My mother's name was on the screen. After years of silence, she suddenly wanted to have dinner so we could reconnect. If I had known what she really meant by reconnect, I would have let the call go to voicemail. Dinner at my parents' house was exactly as I remembered it. Spotlessly clean, utterly silent, almost as if the air itself didn't trust me to breathe it. My mother greeted me with a smile that seemed forced. My father stood behind her with his hands in his pockets. Chloe was sitting at the table, scrolling through her phone, pretending not to notice me. "It's so good to see you," my mother said, leaning into a hug that barely touched my shoulder. "You've been so busy. We hardly ever hear from you." I wanted to laugh. She didn't even try. Dinner was roast chicken and mashed potatoes, the same old order. Chloe sat at the head of the table where my mother usually sat, talking about her new job at a marketing company. They listened as if she were giving a political speech. When she spoke, the room fell silent in a polite, indifferent way. Then my father started cutting up his chicken. "You're still working at that software company?" "Yeah, good pay in that field," he said. "It must be good to be comfortable." I shrugged. "I'm fine." My mother poured the wine into Chloe's glass before mine. "You deserve it, darling," she said. "I don't. You've worked so hard." I swallowed my anger. I had worked harder than anyone at that table, but I'd learned long ago that saying so only made me sound resentful. The following week, I went to visit my grandmother, Iris. She was sitting in her favorite chair, knitting something pink. "You saw them, didn't you?" she asked. I nodded. They seemed to be interested in my finances. The knitting needles stopped spinning. "Oh God, Maya, this is exactly what I was afraid of." "What do you mean?" I sighed. "My friend Margaret, who lives next door to your parents, called yesterday. She said she overheard them talking in the park. They're planning to ask you to help them buy an apartment for Chloe. About $350,000. For a moment, I thought I hadn't heard her right. They want me to buy her an apartment. My grandmother nodded slowly. "They said you have a good job now, you don't have student loans, and you can easily afford it." That statement hit me like a slap in the face. Easily. I'd spent 12 years trying to get out of the hole they helped me dig. And now they wanted me to jump into another one for Chloe. I sat back, my chest tight and my eyes burning but dry. They didn't pay a single dollar of my tuition, I said quietly. They told me to fend for myself. I know, dear, my grandmother said softly. I was there. I glanced at the small clock on her shelf, the second hand ticking loudly. They never cared how hard it was for me. And now they think of me as nothing more than a walking ATM. My grandmother put her knitting aside and reached out to me. You don't owe them anything, Maya. Not after everything they've done to you. Her words resonated deep within me. I had spent years waiting for that kind of validation from anyone. And now, hearing it out loud, it didn't feel like receiving permission. It felt like liberation. That night, driving home through the snow, her words echoed in my mind. My phone rang again. Mom, I didn't answer. The voicemail that followed was overly sweet. Another dinner next week. We'd love to meet. I pulled over, staring at the glowing screen, and felt something shift inside me. All my life, I'd learned that silence was weakness, that not responding diminished me. But sitting there, the engine squealing and the snow slapping against the windshield, I realized something else. Sometimes silence is a strategy. They were planning their move. And for the first time, I was planning too. 2 weeks after that dinner, my mother called again. Her voice was calm, almost rehearsed. Your father and I were just telling you how proud we are of you, Maya, she said. Why don't you come over this weekend? We could have a lovely family dinner. Chloe would be there too. It was the first family dinner invitation I'd received in years. I accepted, knowing exactly why they wanted me there. Saturday arrived, shrouded in gray skies and sleet. I almost turned back halfway through the drive, but curiosity, or perhaps a desire to see what would happen next, compelled me to continue. When I entered the house, it smelled of lemon cleaner and body wash. Fine china was on display. Chloe's laughter echoed from the kitchen. My mother greeted me at the door, looking a little too cheerful. You look so elegant these days, she said, glancing at my coat, shoes, and bag. Your job must be treating you well. It's fine, I replied. Dinner began like a play. Pleasant conversation and forced smiles. My father asked me about my salary out of curiosity. My mother mentioned how Chloe had found a lovely apartment downtown. Great location, 2 bedrooms near her office. It's perfect, Maya, Chloe chimed in. You should see it. I smiled faintly. It sounds good. My mother put down her fork and clasped her hands as if about to say a prayer. Your father and I have talked. Chloe is at a point in her life where she needs to settle down. And you're in a strong financial position now. My father cleared his throat. We think it would be a pleasure to help her out initially. Perhaps sign up for the loan or even cover the payments for a while. I felt a tightness in my chest, but my face didn't move. $350,000, I said slowly as if savoring the number. My mother smiled. Exactly. It's not a lot of money when you think about it. You can easily afford it. The sentence was like a bullet, literally what my grandmother had said. I put down my fork gently. Silence fell over the room. Sure, if that's what you want, I said. Relief washed over their faces. Chloe cried out, hugging me. You're the best. I knew you'd help me. I hugged her back, my smile weak and expressionless. That night, I went home and started packing, not angrily but deliberately. I took out my laptop and wrote a short email to my boss, Mark. You mentioned the Colorado branch might be expanding. If that position is still available, I'd like to be considered. His reply came within hours. Let's talk on Monday. I stood in my nearly empty apartment, cardboard boxes open, snow falling outside. For the first time, I wasn't running from them. I was walking toward myself. They thought I was going to that bank to surrender my freedom. But the truth is, by the time they sat down to sign those papers, I would already be gone. In the week before the bank meeting, I lived my old life like a ghost. I packed boxes at night, canceled my lease, and forwarded my mail. Every detail was meticulously calculated. By Friday, my apartment was completely empty, except for a small box labeled Colorado. I hadn't told Grandma Iris until the day before my trip. We were drinking tea in her kitchen. The air was thick with the scent of chamomile. Colorado, she repeated, frowning slightly. It's so far away. I nodded. I can't stay here, Grandma. They'll never stop taking as long as I keep giving. She gazed at me for a long moment, then smiled a sad, proud smile. Do what you have to do, my dear. Just promise me you'll call when you arrive. I will. That night, I double-checked everything. The movers, my ticket, the new apartment waiting for me in the other state. My phone rang again. Mom, don't forget. 10 o'clock sharp. I stared at the message until it went blurry. Then I hung up. Monday arrived gray and cold. The movers loaded my furniture while I dusted the last traces of dust off the windows. When the door finally closed behind me, I felt like I was breathing a sigh of relief after years of being submerged. I handed in my keys, pushed my suitcase down the hallway, and didn't look back. By Tuesday morning, I was standing in my new office in Colorado. A different skyline, but the same snow. My manager, Mark, gave me a tour of the building, introduced me to the team, and said, "You'll feel right at home here." I smiled. Just the way I planned. That Friday, my phone started vibrating on the desk. First Mom, then Dad, then Chloe. Calls in quick succession, buzzing like angry wasps. I watched it for a moment before turning it face down. I imagined them sitting in the bank, looking at their watches, wondering why I was late. Maybe Mom would start pacing back and forth, whispering that I was selfish. Dad would grumble about being embarrassed. Chloe would frown, cross her arms, and say she'd promised. And when the reality hit me, I wished the silence that would follow would be deafening. Around noon, my phone lit up again. Text messages poured in, one after another. Where are you? We're waiting for you. You're making us look stupid. Then finally, call us now. I took a slow sip of my coffee and replied. My mother's voice was sharp and alarmed. Where the hell are you? We've been sitting here for 2 hours. I looked out the window at the Colorado mountains, the sun glinting off the snow. At work, I said in Colorado. There was silence, then a commotion. Colorado, what are you talking about? I moved last week, I said simply. New job, new beginning. My mother's breath caught as if she'd been slapped. You can't just run away like that. We need you here. No, I said quietly. You need my money. There's a difference. Maya, don't get carried away. We're family. Family. I cut her off, my voice still calm and steady. You mean the people who told me I didn't deserve a college loan, but mortgaged the house for Chloe's tuition? The people who missed my graduation because she wanted a cruise? Don't twist it, she said sharply. You're heartless. Cruel? I chuckled. Do you want to know what cruelty is, Mom? Watching your child drown in debt, and calling it cruelty and love. Pretending to be fair when all you've done is favor one person. Her voice broke. We just thought you believed I still longed for your approval. Behind her, I heard Chloe sobbing. Maya, please help me. I need this place to start my life. I swallowed hard, then started to speak, but not on my back. There was silence, a heavy silence filled with doubt. Then Dad's voice came through, harsh and angry. You don't respect your mother. After everything we've done for you, I interrupted him. What exactly have you done, Dad? And then look, there was a heavy silence. I could almost see their faces. Mom's jaw was clenched. Dad's hand gripped the phone. Chloe's tears were a mixture of frustration and shock. Finally, Mom spoke, her voice slow and trembling. If you hang up now, don't bother coming back. I gave a small, genuine smile that no one saw. That was the point. Then I ended the call. The phone rang again immediately, and then again. I blocked their numbers one by one. I felt more at ease with each block, like I was cutting a puppet's strings. For a few minutes, I sat there silently, listening to the hum of the office around me. A pang of relief washed over me, not guilt but relief. Outside, the light shifted. The snow glistened in the sunlight, almost painful to look at. I pressed my hand against the glass, the cold seeping into my skin, giving me a sense of grounding. I could still hear my mother's last words in my mind. Don't bother coming back. And for the first time, I believed her, and I felt free. Later that day, Grandma Iris called. Her voice was warm and steady. They came, she said. They wanted me to call you so you could see Resin. I chuckled. And did you? I told them Resin left with you, she said. I told them they'd lost the only kind heart in that house. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. The hum of the desk, the distant sound of typing, the smell of coffee. Everything seemed fresh, clean, and untouched. I didn't argue, I said quietly, as if talking to myself more than to her. I know, she replied. That's why the plan worked. And she was right. I didn't need to shout to be heard. My silence was enough. The next few days were eerily quiet, as if the world had fallen silent. No more ringing phones. No more guilt pressing on my chest. Just silence. And for the first time, I didn't feel empty. I felt I deserved it. I settled into my new apartment in Colorado, a modest one-bedroom flat where sunlight filtered through the hardwood floors each morning. I unpacked slowly, box by box, until only a framed photograph of my grandmother, Iris, remained. I placed it on the kitchen table next to a hot cup of coffee. When she called me that evening, her voice held that gentle, confident smile I'd missed. They're furious, you know, she said. They came banging on my door, shouting, accusing me of betrayal. What did you say to them? They mistook generosity for slavery, she replied. And I'm proud of you. I laughed softly, gazing at the horizon glowing pink against the snow. You were always the only one who saw me. I just wanted you to see yourself, Maya. Later, I scrolled through my phone. My inbox was filled with voicemails. My mother's anger. Chloe's tears. My father's silence. I deleted them all without listening to them. Outside, the city lights gradually illuminated from window to window. Somewhere far away, they were still sitting in that house, blaming me for not being the daughter they wanted. And here I was, finally living as the woman I had fought to be. Finally, spring had arrived in Colorado. The snow melted, turning into shimmering rivers on the sidewalks, and the air was filled with the scent of new beginnings. My grandmother, Iris, came to visit, wrapped in her favorite pink shawl. We sat on my porch drinking tea, watching the mountains turn golden in the midday light. You know, I said, smiling, I don't owe anyone anything anymore. Not their approval, not their forgiveness, nothing. My grandmother reached out and squeezed my hand. That's the sound of freedom. I looked at the city around me, and a sense of peace washed over me. For the first time, I wasn't running from something. I was going after myself.
अंधेरी दीवारों में खुद को ढूंढता हूँ मैं। ये जो दिन सहाने थे उन्हीं को सोचता हूँ मैं। तुम्हारे बिन ये मौसम भी बड़ा बेसर्द लगता है। दिल का हर एक कोना अब बहुत ही दूर भरता है। अंधेरी दीवारों में खुद को ढूंढता हूँ मैं। ये जो दिन सुहाने थे उन्हीं को सोचता हूँ मैं। तुम्हारे बिन ये मौसम भी बड़ा सर्द लगता है। दिल का हर एक कोना बहुत ही दर्द भरता है। मेरे साए भी मुझसे अब जुदा होने को कहते हैं। तुझे खोने की राहों में ये आंसू बहने लगते हैं। कहाँ जाऊं कहाँ ढूंढूं मेरा वो साजो सामा तो मेरी हर एक तमन्ना तू। मेरी रूह का मकां तू। लकीरों में नहीं लिखा जो तुमने ख्वाब देखा था। वफा की इस कहानी में फकत एक गम ही लिखा था। सितारों से भी पूछता है पता तेरा कहाँ होगा। मगर खामोश है दुनिया कहाँ मेरा जहाँ होगा। बस एक बार मुड़ के देख ले मेरी बेबसी की सूरत। मुझे है आज भी तेरी वफा की सख्त जरूरत। साए मेरे तन्हा सफर बस रह गया दर्द का असर। साए मेरे तन्हा सफर बस रह गया दर्द का असर। दर्द का असर।